Great knights deserve to die on the battlefield with sword in hand, defeated foes scattered at their feet. Women would weep at their passing, and men would sing the tales of their deeds in great halls for generations to come. Yet in war, there were always survivors. Most warriors who survived such conflicts all the way to old age hardly ever retired with dignity. Such was the case with Ser Barristan Selmy. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Dubbed Barristan the Bold for his prowess on the battlefield and overall demeanor, Selmy spent his life as a knight with varying allegiances, countless enemies, and an endless supply of war stories. Still, into old age, all Ser Barristan desired was to serve in the Kingsguard, upholding his honor and his word. But when he was publicly shamed and tossed aside like the toy of a bored child, he realized his greatest moment of shame was actually a gift by which to find his real calling. He served once more the great house of the Dragon Lords, presenting himself as a valuable ally to his queen and an unbreakable adversary to his enemies. So, who exactly is Barristan Selmy, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Barristan Selmy was born in 236 or 237 AC to Sir Lionel Selmy and his wife, the firstborn child of the knightly house of Harvest Hall in the Dornish Marches. Growing up, Barristan took quickly to the life of a knight, squiring for Lord Manfred Swan as a boy. Squiring hardly satiated his thirst for action, however, and at only 10 years old he joined the tourney at Blackhaven as a mystery knight. The crowd laughed at the diminutive figure in his oversized armor, but Prince Duncan Targaryen, sometimes known as Duncan the Small, took pity on the mystery knight and agreed to joust him. It was from the very same Prince Duncan that Barristan got his nickname Barristan the Bold. Only 6 years later, Barristan received his knighthood for his accomplishments in yet another tourney. During this event, Barristan unseated both Prince Duncan Targaryen and Sir Duncan the Tall, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, prompting King Aegon Targaryen V to grant him his desperately desired title of Ser Barristan Selmy. The newly made knight proved not only successful in tourney settings, but real battles as well. Ser Barristan smote Maelys Blackfyre I, or Maelys the Monstrous, in single combat during the War of the Ninepenny Kings, ending the male succession of the Blackfyres, and he single-handedly killed many members of the Golden Company just to have a chance of doing so. This single deed turned the tide of the war, squashing the wills of the remaining Band of Nine, who lost interest in invading Westeros. Ser Barristan and his boldness on the battlefield prevented the mercenaries of the Free Cities from stepping foot on the mainland of the Seven Kingdoms, repelling an invasion and catapulting his name into fame immemorial. Returning to Westeros, Ser Barristan was named a member of the Kingsguard at only 23 years old, when he took the White Cloak and swore his oaths in front of the King Jaehaerys Targaryen II and Sir Gerald Hightower. Ser Barristan renounced his claim to Harvest Hall, as well as his betrothal to his fiancée, who instead married his cousin. After the death of King Jaehaerys, Ser Barristan continued his service in the Kingsguard under King Aerys Targaryen II, the Mad King. In the year 277 AC, the king was held hostage inside the town of Duskendale for half a year during the Defiance of Duskendale, and while sitting hand of the king Lord Tywin Lannister wished to bombard the place and forcibly ply the king away, Ser Barristan presented another method. He offered to sneak into the town and rescue the king on his own, and though reluctant, Lord Tywin gave him a day to accomplish his task. Patching together a disguise to make himself appear as a hooded beggar, Ser Barristan climbed the walls of Duskendale in the dead of night, scaled the walls of the Dun Fort itself, and killed a sentry before he could signal word of an intruder. Barristan crept to the dungeons, found King Aerys, and freed him, and together they fled to the upper levels of the fort in their escape. As they went, Ser Barristan slew multiple men, and atop stolen horses, they made their daring escape. In the fray, Ser Barristan took an arrow to the chest, but he survived and returned Aerys to the Iron Throne alive and well. Adding another legendary deed to his name, Ser Barristan became the subject of many a song sung in the halls of great lords and knights across the Seven Kingdoms. His next mythic feat came in his defeat of the Kingswood Brotherhood. Sent by the Mad King with the rest of the Kingsguard to quell the uprising, Ser Barristan killed the Brotherhood's leader, Sir Simon Toyne, in single combat, and rescued Lady Jane Swan and her septa. In the later years of the Mad King's reign, he even participated in the infamous tourney at Harrenhal, during a time when even he struggled to uphold his Kingsguard vows, while Eris descended further into insanity. At the Harrenhal tourney, Ser Barristan became captivated by the Lady Ashara Dane, a calling of the heart he knew he couldn't ever fulfill. Confident in his skill, he made plans to name Ashara his Queen of Love and Beauty after he'd won the tourney, but he was defeated by Prince Rhaegar. The Crown Prince went on to name Lyanna Stark the loveliest woman present, a decision that kickstarted yet another war. As Barristan reflected on the events that took place that day in his old age, he often wondered if Robert's rebellion could have been avoided completely had he unhorsed Rhaegar as he had at Storm's End. Surely he would have gained the admiration of Ashara Dane as well, though she instead turned to Ned Stark. Barristan realized his desire for Ashara, and his inability to act on it, was a failure that meant more than many of his greatest victories in the field. Soon after the tourney at Harrenhal, Robert's rebellion swept across the land, and Ser Barristan sided with the Targaryens, holding to his Kingsguard vows. After Lord John Connington suffered a crippling defeat at the Battle of the Bells, Ser Barristan and Ser Jonathan Darry were tasked with rallying what remained of the Targaryen loyalist army in an attempt at recuperation. In what would prove to be the most polarizing event of the war, Ser Barristan was present at the Battle of the Trident, where he slew dozens of rebels who were close friends of Lords Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark. In the fray, he was pierced by spear, arrow, and sword, but it was not enough, as Robert Baratheon dealt a crushing blow when he defeated and killed Prince Rhaegar Targaryen in single combat. At the conclusion of the battle, the Loyalists had lost, but Ser Barristan still lived. Lord Baratheon sent his own maester to tend to Barristan's wounds. The Knight of the Kingsguard took much time to heal, and was thus not present in King's Landing, when Lord Tywin Lannister presented Robert with the corpses of Rhaegar's slain children. Ser Barristan surmised that if he had been, and that if Lord Robert had smiled as the rumor stated, he would have killed the Lord of the Stormlands if it was the final act he committed in this life. Ser Barristan accepted the pardon offered him by the new king, for although Robert's rebellion was somewhat barbaric in nature, the Baratheon king had been more chivalrous with the survivors. So, Ser Barristan assumed the title of Lord Commander in King Robert's Kingsguard. Despite any personal quarrels Ser Barristan may have had with his new king, he still served honorably. During Greyjoy's rebellion, Barristan the Bold helmed the assault on Old Wick, and eventually the uprising was crushed. By this time, Ser Barristan appeared much as he did in the narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire. He was tall, though less muscular. He possessed sad eyes pale blue in color, and lined features topped by white hair that was once blonde in youth. Though a weathered veteran of rough years in the battlefield, many believed Ser Barristan to still be handsome, and all knew he was still graceful and strong as a spry youth, despite his age. Often considered the greatest living knight, comparable in combat to the renowned Sir Arthur Dane. Ser Barristan was made of an iron will, necessary for a man in his profession. Patrolling the lands as a member of the Kingsguard, he was adorned with white armor, a white cloak, and a white shield, and at his hip laid both longsword and dirk. His enameled white plate possessed silver chasings, and his gear was clasped together in silver, presenting him as a shining figure to the world. When first seen in A Song of Ice and Fire, in the first novel, A Game of Thrones, Ser Barristan Selmy is traveling north with Lord Renly Baratheon and Sir Ilyn Payne, where they meet the company of King Robert Baratheon and his new hand Lord Eddard Stark, and escort them back to King's Landing. In celebration of being joined once more with his friend of old, Robert throws a celebration for Ned's arrival, and the King's Hand tourney begins in King's Landing. Ser Barristan takes part, and is unseated by Sir Jaime Lannister in the third contest, though he has already defeated men decades younger in his first two tilts. When Sir Gregor Clegane kills Sir Hugh of the Vale in what appears to be an accident during the tourney, Ser Barristan stands vigil over the poor, perished knight who has no one else to attend to him. Ser Barristan didn't know Sir Hugh, but that hardly stopped him from performing the rites and rituals deserved by all who are dead. Again fulfilling his duties as Lord Commander, Ser Barristan sits on King Robert's small council, and is the only man to oppose the assassination order of Daenerys Targaryen, aside from Lord Eddard. Tumult soon rocks the capital, however, and Ser Barristan sees firsthand the cause, for he is with King Robert on the hunt for the White Hart in the Kingswood, and can only watch as his charge is speared by a great boar. Ser Barristan aids in returning Robert to the Red Keep, but the king dies from his wounds, and his son Joffrey ascends to the throne. Ser Barristan is a legend, true, but he is also in the way, and so, by suggestion of Lord Varys, Queen Regent Cersei Lannister and her son Joffrey dismiss Barristan from the Kingsguard, citing old age, and the fact that he couldn't prevent the death of the late King Robert. They offer him a life of retirement and pleasure in thanks for his service, but to the sound of shrill laughter from his fellow White Cloaks, Ser Barristan throws down his sword and storms from the hall, filled with shame. With the bold knight gone, Cersei and Joffrey are now free to place Sandor Clegane, the Hound, in the Kingsguard, and make Sir Jaime Lannister the acting Lord Commander. Because of his foul words directed at Joffrey, Barristan is to be found and questioned, per the orders of the king, and Janos Slynt and 3 gold cloaks track the old man to the stables. Before that, however, Ser Barristan remains steadfast in one last duty as a Kingsguard, entering the White Sword Tower and recording his own dismissal in the White Book. He debates returning home to Harvest Hall, where he knows he'll be welcomed back with the highest regard. But Ser Barristan decides not to return, as he wishes not to bring Joffrey's wrath upon his family. Instead, he sells his horse outside the capital, and takes up the disguise of a hobbled old man weathered with age. Under his new identity, he sneaks back into the city, pretending to be a commoner refugee from the countryside, and once there, witnesses the brutal beheading of Lord Eddard Stark. As the crowd clears away, and nobles and commoners alike return to their usual business, Ser Barristan enters the Sept and prays for the soul of Lord Eddard. Barristan reflects on his service under King Robert, and readily determines that while Lord Baratheon had been an exceptional knight, his kingship was indeed lacking. Rather than live out his days in shame, Ser Barristan decides he must find his one true king, and serve him until the day he dies. Meanwhile, Lord Tywin Lannister laments the stupidity of his daughter and grandson, calling Barristan's dismissal a foolish action. It is one of the reasons he decides to send Tyrion to the capital to act as Hand of the King, where he can better rein in Joffrey than Cersei can. For though Ser Barristan is old, he would make an unbreakable ally for any of the other kings in the War of the Five Kings. In A Clash of Kings, many important figures begin to ponder the ultimate fate of Ser Barristan. No one in the Seven Kingdoms knows the man's true intentions, though. The bold knight sails across the narrow sea to Pentos, intent on finding his true king, Viserys Targaryen. Stepping foot into Pentos, Barristan soon comes into contact with Magister Illyrio Mopatis, as most men of renown do when visiting Pentos, and Illyrio informs him of Viserys' death in Vice Dothrak. The Magister reminds him a Targaryen yet lives, however, and sends him on his way to Qarth, disguised as the aged squire Arstan Whitebeard, along with the gargantuan eunuch warrior Strong Belwas. Barristan agrees to bring Daenerys back to Pentos, though he has no idea of the resolve of the Mother of Dragons. Together with his new portly companion, Barristan trails after Daenerys and Ser Jorah Mormont along the docks of the city as the latter try to find passage on the ship's station there. Ever protective of his queen, Ser Jorah notices them among the crowd and grows suspicious. It quickly slips his mind, however, as a scornful man attempts to take Daenerys' life by presenting her with a box containing a poisonous manticore. When the tumult rescinds, it is Ser Barristan who knocks the manticore from Daenerys' hand and kills it, not Ser Jorah. Ser Barristan introduces himself as Arstan Whitebeard, squire to Strong Belwas, and informs Daenerys the two of them were sent by Magister Illyrio to both serve her and bring her back to Pentos, as chaos has erupted in Westeros. In A Storm of Swords, Barristan continues his attempt to enter the service of Daenerys Targaryen. The Mother of Dragons agrees to take Grolio's ships, as Barristan advised, but instead of sailing for Pentos, she directs them to Astapor instead. There, she plans to purchase the Unsullied army. Aboard the ships, Barristan, still under his Arstan Whitebeard disguise, talks with Daenerys of her past, present, and family whom she hardly got to know. The company of the Dragon Queen soon arrives in Astapor, and Ser Barristan is at Daenerys' side when she meets with the Masters planning to sell her the Unsullied. Barristan watches the Mother of Dragons agree to gift the Master a dragon in exchange for the Unsullied, and while before he watched with a frown, now he has a smile, as Daenerys uses the same soldiers, now free men, to retake her dragon and conquer Astapor in her name. Later, outside Yunkai, Barristan gains another chance to talk with his queen, and Daenerys once more discusses her family, especially Rhaegar and his life and actions. Daenerys frees the slaves in Yunkai, and her wave of liberation continues on to Meereen. Ser Barristan is with her outside the city's walls, advising her to send forth a challenger to face the Meereenese champion in combat. She picks strong Belwas, reluctant to call upon any of her more important followers, and the eunuch dispatches his opponent easily. As they further wait outside Meereen, Daenerys and her company sit idle, and the queen decides to travel with a smaller guard than before. Among that reduced group is Ser Barristan. And when Marrow, the Titan's bastard and former head of the Second Sons, attacks Daenerys, the bold knight defeats the man easily. Marrow falls to the ground and is stampeded by the free men of the camp. Daenerys, meanwhile, calls for Arstan to be knighted, but both he and Ser Jorah protest in unison. Ser Jorah wonders aloud how a squire with a stick could kill the Titan's bastard alone, and Ser Barristan informs him that he is in fact a superior knight as compared to Mormont. Turning to face his queen, Barristan begs forgiveness of Daenerys, and Jorah then realizes his true identity. Barristan confesses who he really is, and Jorah claims that the man betrayed House Targaryen to serve Robert Baratheon the Usurper. Nevertheless, Barristan urges Daenerys to accept him into her service as a knight. He explains that yes, he did serve King Robert, but only because he was pardoned, and that once he was dismissed and hunted by Robert's son Joffrey, he knew he had to find his true king, or queen. The Kingsguard of Westeros was an unworthy lot, but Daenerys and her company are a much more virtuous party. He also tells his queen that he only kept his identity secret before to prevent the Lannisters of learning of his whereabouts, a sentiment she much appreciates, and he also informs her of Ser Jorah's agreement with Varys to spy on her. Unwilling to betray his word, Jorah admits that Ser Barristan tells the truth. Disgusted with both men, Daenerys bids them, along with Belwas and a small company of Unsullied, to infiltrate Meereen through the sewers and release the slaves, thus opening the city from within. She wishes both knights to die in their task, but they both succeed, and Meereen becomes a cracked egg ripe for the taking. Daenerys begins her occupation, and Ser Barristan shaves his beard, resuming his true identity and looking 10 years younger in the process. Brought back into Daenerys' company, Ser Barristan admits to her that he really kept his identity secret so as to determine if she possessed hints of madness like her father and brother Viserys. He explains that her brother Rhaegar had none, and that she appears to follow in his footsteps in that regard. Finally, Daenerys gives in, accepting Barristan formally into her service and granting him a gifted sword. Jorah, meanwhile, is exiled for his dissidence. Though Ser Barristan Selmy is absent from A Feast for Crows, he appears once more in A Dance with Dragons. Named Lord Commander of the Queensguard by Daenerys herself, Barristan fits right into his old position while dressing in new garb. His armor is gold and silver instead of white, though he still wears a white cloak and carries a white shield. Longsword strapped to his hip, he now dons a helm decorated with fanciful dragon wings, signifying his service to the Mother of Dragons. While dallying in Meereen, Ser Barristan begins to instruct some of the young men of the city in the ways of Westerosi chivalry, intent on turning them into knights. He even takes on some squires, and trains some freed slaves to be soldiers as well. His actions appear prescient, as soon word reaches the city that Yunkai intends to march upon Meereen. In an effort to abate tensions throughout the city, Daenerys prepares to wed the Meereenese noble Hizdahr zo Loraq, and though the tactical marriage appears promising, Ser Barristan disapproves. He knows Hizdahr won't be accepted in Westeros as a person, let alone a ruler, and fears this will detract from Daenerys' momentous claim. Yet, he can do nothing to change the mind of his queen, even when he utters support for newly arrived Dornish prince Quentyn Martell. The boy informs the queen of the marriage pact between their houses, but holding to her word, she marries Hizdahr instead. Together, Daenerys and Hizdahr attend the great reopening of Daznak's pit, and Ser Barristan and the rest of the queen's trusted allies stand beside her. In a tumultuous sea of dust, blood, and poison, an assassination attempt takes place, and the pit is thrown into a frenzy. During the chaos, Drogon vaults in from the sky, attacking the people seemingly at random. In a heroic act of selflessness, Ser Barristan attempts to attract Drogon's attention onto himself and away from his queen, but Daenerys soon flees toward the grim horizon atop the dragon's back. With the queen gone from Meereen, Hizdahr zo Loraq remains the sole ruler, and he replaces Daenerys' royal advisors to those that suit his own tastes. Ser Barristan, bitter toward the suspicious king, meets in secret with Grey Worm and the Shave Pate to discuss the future of their precarious position. With brewing conflict thick in the air, Barristan suggests Prince Quentyn and his two companions leave Meereen and return home, but the stubborn trio ignores his advice. Pivoting his focus, Barristan again conspires with Grey Worm and the Shave Pate. After seeing what happened to Strong Belwas at Daznak's pit, they determine someone tried to feed their queen poisoned locusts that day, and Barristan suspects Hizdahr is the culprit. Despite his inhibitions of going against his noble nature, Barristan agrees to take swift action against Hizdahr with his two companions, but he refuses the ruthless suggestions of how to do so offered up by the Shave Pate. Eventually, they work out a plan in which Barristan is to lead the Brazen Beasts in capturing Hizdahr, yet they will do him no harm so as to keep the hostages in the Yunkai camp, including Daario, safe. On a night fated for greatness and infamy, Barristan carries out his coup, capturing Hizdahr after slaying his pit fighter protector, Kraz. Elsewhere in the city, Quentyn Martell makes a futile attempt at winning over Daenerys by trying to tame one of her two present dragons. The beasts burn the young prince in horrible fashion, and are unleashed into the night sky from their protective cavern within the Great Pyramid, in parallel to Ser Barristan's coup. Taking control of Meereen's affairs, Ser Barristan adopts the title of Hand of the Queen, and carries out actions including reining in the bloodthirsty Shave Pate and sending Galaza Galair as an envoy to the Yunkishmen. Barristan holds no court, only council meetings, in order to plan for the approaching battle that appears inevitable. As Hand, he oversees the setup of a beacon system to alert a breach of peace, and then meets with Ser Jairus Drinkwater and Ser Archibald Ironwood, the companions of the perished Prince Quentyn. Ser Barristan enlists them into his service, and sends them to meet with the tattered prince. Ser Selmy instructs them to offer the man Pentos in exchange for protecting the hostages of the queen within the Meereenese camp. As the young knights depart, Ser Barristan meets with the Green Grace, who has returned from the Yunkish camp, but is interrupted by the concerned voice of the Shave Pate, who informs him that catapults have begun flinging corpses into the city, corpses infected with the Pale Mare. Throughout his life, and especially into his later years, Ser Barristan Selmy becomes the most celebrated knight of his lifetime. From illusions of bold grandeur in tourneys while still a youth, to battles across the narrow sea as a young man, to daring escapades to save a king in his middling years, Barristan proves his worth as a warrior and a man 1,000 times over. By the time of the narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire, he is an old man, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, but still possesses above all his strength and resolve. He serves under the man he fought against not but years prior, and then his son in turn. Yet when Joffrey takes the throne, he and his mother Cersei conspire to rid the Kingsguard of its leader. They wring their hands in anticipation of filling the court of King's Landing with their own loyal lackeys, and one of their first actions is to replace Ser Barristan with Sandor Clegane, while promoting Sir Jaime Lannister to the Lord Commander role. The entire hall laughs and mocks Barristan the Bold, who throws down his sword and storms out. Even the other men of the Kingsguard, the White Cloaks who served under him, cannot hide their snickering. Though Joffrey and Cersei probably think the matter quite trivial, to Ser Barristan, it is a blow to his very being. His entire adult life has been spent in service to the king, and to have it yanked from his grasp so carelessly rocks him to his core. But success springs from failure, especially for a man as principled as Ser Barristan Selmy. Though his dramatic and pitiful dismissal from the Kingsguard of Westeros occurred in embarrassing fashion, it allows him to seek and find a new purpose. Barristan travels across the Narrow Sea, and eventually falls into the company of Daenerys Stormborn, the last surviving child of the Mad King. The two reconcile, and Ser Barristan resumes his responsibilities as Lord Commander, only this time as head of the Queen's Guard. He even becomes hand to the Queen for a time while Daenerys is absent. In Meereen, Ser Barristan trains unproven boys and men in the practices of chivalry, thus drawing upon his vast knowledge and desire for more good knights in the world. And when the slavers of the East press down upon the city, it is Ser Barristan who takes up command in its defense. At his lowest point, showered with snide laughter in the throne room of King's Landing, Kingsguard blade lying at his feet, Ser Barristan made a pact with himself to use that moment to soar to greater heights. After traveling the free cities, he did, entering the service and providing wise counsel and bold protection to his true queen. Ser Barristan the Bold lived a storied life, punctuated by historic achievements and few failures. He became a living legend, bringing honor and prestige back to the White Cloak of the Kingsguard. His presence, however, grew little appreciated as King Joffrey Baratheon ascended to the throne, and Ser Barristan experienced the greatest shame of his life as he was dismissed from duty. He traveled east, and fell in with Daenerys Targaryen, who recognized his usefulness and willingness to serve. Ser Barristan became more powerful and nobler than he'd ever been, serving under the Mother of Dragons, and he realized that his humiliating experience in the Red Keep actually led him to a more virtuous purpose. Ser Barristan Selmy was given the gift of shame. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here, I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.